Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the history of Reiki, and that is on page 7 of your manuals. And again, we've scanned them in, and you'll be able to download them as PDF from the website, and then of course you'll receive them in your manuals at the retreat. So one of the interesting things about Reiki is it was rediscovered almost 200 years ago, and yet in the last 20 years it is just growing like wildfire. And really it was relatively unknown until that time. So it's really kind of neat how it's been around for such a long period of time, and yet it's a relatively new energy healing modality as far as people's awareness is concerned, although it's becoming much more popular. I don't know if you can hear my friend in the background. We're shooting these clips at a place called Fort Normandeau that's just outside of our Red Deer offices, and it's actually an old trading post that they've kind of restored and different things like this. So I'll actually put a little bit of a text kind of blurb on this website, and maybe a few photos and whatnot. So that's where we're shooting this from. So a person by the name of Dr. Usaya was the one that rediscovered Reiki, and I say rediscovered because the energy that flows through us and will flow through you as a Reiki practitioner is older than time itself. And so Dr. Usaya, it comes from Japan, so Dr. Usaya obviously was Japanese. And there's different strains of the story. Some people say that he had a business that went bad. Some people say that he looked around at all the illness and the disease and the infirmities and the inefficiencies of traditional medicine to relieve the discomfort, and just knew there was something more. I think what's important about this aspect of the story is that something happened that changed the course of his life. And I know for myself, and I would think, I wouldn't be surprised if you look back in your history, there are different events in your life that marked your turning point. Some of them were very positive, and others could be very challenging or stressful. But they were those events that changed. I know for me, the event that changed the course of my life that has led me to doing this here was a bump in the road, literally, that led to a lower back injury. And I will share that story with you, and my journey to a restoration of healthfulness and wellness, and complete healthfulness and wellness, I might add, at the retreat. So the important thing in this aspect of this piece of the story is something happened to change the course, to cause him to look at something different, to change the direction he was going. Probably very similar to whatever has caused you to be looking at this video, whatever stirred that interest in you to look for something different, to begin to follow down this path of being a Reiki practitioner. So something happened, and during his discovery and his ultimate journey, or his journey from there, he ended up at a monastery up in a mountain called Mount Karama, and the monastery is actually still there. And as the story goes, he was up in the mountain by himself meditating. The story goes for 21 days. Now, I don't know whether it was 21 days or 18 days or 35 days. I think the important aspect of this piece of the story is he spent time alone searching. See, there's a very big difference between being alone and being lonely. And there are times in your journey, as I have found in mine, that there's much value in being alone and listening and becoming still and becoming quiet, being able to hear the voice that's inside of us all the time. It's just that it's sometimes really hard to hear because we keep so busy with other stuff. So there was a period of time that he went off by himself and he was searching. And so, as I said, whether it was 21 days, 18 days, the important thing is, as he was there searching, he received an answer. And it was on that mountain that he received the first attunement, and we'll talk about what an attunement is a little bit later. And that's where the rediscovery, the weird awareness, his crown chakra, and we'll talk about what chakras are, opened up, and the energy flowed through him. And so he received the first attunement. So then he came down from the mountain and began treating people and seeing many amazing recoveries happening. So then came along a fellow by the name of Dr. Hayashi. Yes, I have to think about it there, Dr. Hayashi. And he was the first one that Dr. Usaya attuned. Now, the part that Dr. Hayashi plays in the beginnings of the rediscovery of Reiki was he formalized it. So he actually opened up a clinic, and he taught different people to be practitioners, and he set up client records. He set up a teaching system, if you will, for teaching it. So he formalized it, if you will. So then the next player was a lady by the name of Mrs. Takada. So Mrs. Takada was Hawaiian. I don't know if she was born in Hawaii, but she was in Hawaii. And again, something caused her to go to Japan. Now, some say it was an illness that she was looking for treatment for. Others say it was some family business that she had to go back to Japan or to Japan to deal with. Again, I don't think the particulars are so important as the fact that something happened in her life that changed the course of events. And many times when those things happen in our lives, we don't realize, and sometimes we wonder why this thing has happened. And it's not until we look back that we see, that moment in time, and maybe it was very pleasant or maybe it was very traumatic, but we can look back and we can say that moment, that was the point that everything changed. And for you, I truly believe if you choose, our upcoming weekend that we will share together can be that moment for you. That can be the time that everything changes. So Mrs. Takada came to Japan. Whether she got ill there, again, as I say, or whether it was an illness that took her there, but she ended up at Dr. Hayashi's clinic. And so in a short period of time, whatever her manifestation of disease, whatever her illness was alleviated, was gone. So she convinced Dr. Hayashi to attune her. So Mrs. Takada and Dr. Hayashi's wife were the first two ladies that were attuned to Reiki. So then Mrs. Takada brought that back to Hawaii and began teaching and attuning people and bringing them through to their master status. The interesting thing about her is when she passed on in 1980, she had attuned, I believe it was 16 masters. And now in the last 20 years, it has just grown like wildfire to what I believe will probably be the next alternative healing modality that will be recognized by the traditional medical establishment. And so that's a little bit about a history. As I said, we've scanned some images in or some pages in, and you can download them right now, and you can browse through and you can read some more details and some different accounts of it. Again, they will be in your manual at the retreat. But this gives you a little bit of a background behind Reiki and sort of just help you build the groundwork for entering into your experience of transformation during our retreat weekend.